wir sind online, es geht los. Also, wir werden über Smart City Projekte sprechen, beziehungsweise ein bisschen weiterschauen und gucken, wie sieht es international aus. Und wir bekommen jetzt Input von einem Mann, der besonders die Städte, Bundesstaaten und Länder zu Best Practice Beispielen und Entwicklung intelligenter Städte berät, und das in New York. Und wir gucken ja als Deutsche immer sehr gerne nach New York, was da so stattfindet. Und
here. So I'm glad to have a chance to talk to everyone about what I see going on both in New York City and also around the world. So let me quickly get slides up here. And if everyone can see these, confirmed. So I want to talk about threats and opportunities for cities in general, but certainly smart cities. But let me set the stage first for this. As an educator, running universities for 15 years, I've concluded, and I think you probably agree, talent is truly the most important quality in the future of the 21st century. As one friend says, Deborah Wynn Smith, talent is the oil of the 21st century. This is especially so, but no longer is talent meeting like I show in this slide, but more often talent's meeting like this, virtually. So we're learning new ways of educating, but first, the importance of talent. This is the reason why cities want to be smart, is to attract, train, and retain talent. And if you're thinking about your city, that's the key to everything else that happens: economic growth, quality of life.
Sorry, Jerry, we don't see your slides.
Okay.
Can you check it?
Just a second.
Yes.
Back to this. Where's the, okay. Sharing should be here. Should be here. See my slides now?
Yes, we see your screenshot, or
Yeah.
your screen, yes.
I know, I'll get it. Okay. Now, see this?
We see.
Good. Okay, so talent, critically important, but no longer is talent and education meeting like this, but is meeting more often like this. Whether you're a company, whether you're a school, whether you're a city, this is the new way we're communicating, as we are today. Second big force, though, that we really got to deal with, it's not COVID. I'll get to COVID, but it's really the rise of automation, artificial intelligence, competing with humans. As I often say, the real challenge for American educators around the world is to make humans smarter than robots, all humans. That's going to be a real challenge because automation's getting very good, artificial intelligence is getting very good. So you've got to deal with this. And cities of the future need to find a way for, let's say, robots and humans to exist together effectively. Third big force, though, is inequality. Inequality, certainly in the US, has shown itself through COVID to be very racially oriented, very economic oriented. It cannot persist. A world of poor people does not sustain a world. And certainly the rich, even the rich, are beginning to realize that without a middle class, without a rising opportunity for everybody, the system does not work. Whether it's a capitalist system, as we think of the United States, or whether it's a more socialist system, as in China, regardless, rising tides are important for everybody. And of course, COVID, and especially in New York City, is a real factor. Here's the 6 train, the train I take to work, except I haven't taken that train since March. It's empty. The transit system in the US is losing, in New York City, is losing $15 billion this year. It will soon be inoperative. New York City can't exist without this system. Other cities, of course, have better alternatives. So take these 4 forces and let's then explore where they go. First, if you're thinking of smart cities, be sure not to think of it as just government services. We're not just talking about automated building permits or new ways of handling parking without parking meters. We're talking about all the pieces of the city: smart buildings, smart housing, smart mobility, smart retail, everything. All this could change and will change, especially now as we come out of the coronavirus pandemic. But look what we're losing in terms of available funds by not stepping up to these opportunities. Take shared mobility. A study was done in the United States that said just in the United States, $1 trillion of family income would be freed up for new spending if shared mobility was practiced across the nation. So this meant money could be used for preschool, for education, for a better house, for any number of things. Of course, it'd be devastating for the auto industry as we know it, but this shift is a shift for quality of life that ought to be employed. Then look at construction. Again, in the US, I'll use these numbers. I estimate that over $2 trillion in construction costs could be saved if we used robots, AI, and other automated technologies. This again frees up enormous amount of money, brings down the cost of buildings, makes rent cheaper, allows you to build more effectively and more creatively. So this is a lost opportunity. And third, worldwide, this is a shot of Moscow, but worldwide, McKinsey estimates that $3.6 trillion of savings a year if we use automation in government operations. I've done studies of major organizations in the United States that say 30% of its operating costs could be reduced if we use automation. This money could be used for other governmental services, mental health, preschool, education, healthcare. This is, again, it's essentially an inefficiency tax on all of us because we aren't adopting these techniques fast enough. So now let's talk, well, one more piece. Andre Correa and I did a book on New York City agencies using AI and other automation techniques, data. We engaged 12 universities. We looked at a lot of what New York City's already doing. Change can definitely be made. I estimate New York City has a $90 billion budget. It's going to lose almost $15 billion of that this year because of COVID, but it could save $32 billion a year if it really took AI, automation, robots seriously. There'd be a big transition, new jobs, new training, but the services could be far more effective and improve the quality of life for New Yorkers. And if you're thinking of your city, the same thing could be said for your city. I'm certain you can name the places that are operating inefficiently and where automation, AI, robotic techniques, business processes, all could be used. So now let's talk about my view of how cities become smart based on travel and working with cities around the world, from Singapore, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Shanghai, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, India, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, the Middle East, Abu Dhabi, into Europe, the Eastern European cities, and of course, Sweden, Berlin, London, Barcelona, and then in the US, cities across the US, and in Latin America, Porto Alegre, Brazil, and others. First, it's not just technology. I'm sure you think this too. It's people. People and technology can develop smart. And this is essentially a revolution happened in the last 10 years because the first smart cities were almost all about technology. And now more and more, we're viewing people as critical. It's got to be people engaged in the planning, in the execution, in the transition, and in defining and enjoying the outcomes and getting outcomes that they really enjoy. Not every technology produces an outcome that people enjoy. Keep your eye on that. So 4, 5, 6 actually rules that I like to use one's changed because of COVID. So you need to be creative yet competitive. You need to be concentrated yet convenient. Now that one's changed. COVID is going to test concentration and density. And you need to be capitalized. It means you need money, but that money needs to be curious, willing to take risks. Old money is not helpful. Fresh, eager to change money is helpful. So let's talk about creative yet competitive. New York in 2013, actually starting in 2008 after the financial crisis, realized, did a set of community-based studies that determined that really New York was going to be short of technical workers for the coming fintech economy, the future of marketing, the future of healthcare, all the major industries of New York City. So Mayor Bloomberg at the time created a competition, and look at how this worked. He took a dormant old island, you can see the picture there, we had a psychiatric hospital on it that was barely being used, and offered it as a prize to universities around the world to create a fourth major university in New York. Remember, I was leading NYU at the time. Cornell was not in New York City. Columbia was in New York City, and the City University of New York is in New York City. Those are the three big universities in 2008. The competition was won by Cornell and Technion in Israel, and they promised to invest $2 billion to build a new campus. You can see the new campus being built in the lower picture. So look what happened. A dormant piece of land is a prize. A university, private university, commits $2 billion over 30 years. And suddenly there's a fourth university in New York City, and the old universities, Columbia, NYU, and City University of New York, who basically said, we're the best there is in the world, what more could we do? Were put to the test. Cornell came to town and said, there's a whole new way of doing things. Look what that does. It changes NYU. It changes Columbia. So this kind of inserting yourself into the process with a prize, bringing new players to the table, can really have multiple impact on improving a city. And here's Cornell Tech's campus as it is now. Tata built a major building. Michael Bloomberg, when he was no longer mayor, built a building. It's turned into a thriving fourth university, not unlike the way you're thinking about Tempelhof in Berlin as an asset to change the framework of a city. Now let's talk about concentrated. No longer, but convenient. So this would be last year's picture. Concentrated, people having fun, no longer the case. So concentrated has got to be rethought. And I realize we're all rethinking it, and I'm sure you are too. Take Zaraje Park in Russia, in Moscow. Now, that park's big enough to be convenient, to be fun, to have a circulation of people, but not to be so concentrated. So potentially it has an opportunity to deliver, let's call it the post-COVID form of concentration, where people get together and enjoy each other's company, but with some distance. Or take what C40 and Paris are doing now with the 15-minute city. The idea that you would have everything you need within 15 minutes, that's the kind of concentration. But of course, you would spread it out enough that people would have housing and work close by, and might work more often from home. Or take what's going on in Finland with the saving 1 hour a day projects, where technology is being used to give people an extra hour a day that they can use for taking care of their kids or other things like that. Thank you. We'll get rid of these. And here I am finding convenience on a line bike, which, by the way, is $2 billion valuation. Now is only 500 million. So COVID's had its impact on where scooters are headed. Finally, capitalize, let's yet curious. When I ran the university, we made a point of creating incubators, accelerators, created an angel fund, All of this to attract capital and to give young people an opportunity to build things. These three companies, you can look them up, CB Insights, Honest Buildings, Think Echo, all came out of that original incubator in 2009 and now are major successes. So you need capital. Don't underestimate capital. Keep it curious. Finally, I was asked if I would talk a little bit about New York and urban industrialization. So let's talk about a project I and many others worked on called the Brooklyn Tech Triangle. This was an effort to take three pieces of Brooklyn and weave them together. Here they are, Dumbo on the left, Brooklyn Navy Yard, I'll talk more about, in downtown Brooklyn. Dumbo was primarily housing and creative office space. Downtown Brooklyn was the university I ran, which I moved more towards an entrepreneurial, we called it I²E for innovation, invention, and entrepreneurship. And then the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which in many ways has been the true success. Well, all three have been total successes. So let's look at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Here it is physically. It was an old shipyard, building ships since the American Civil War in the 1860s. Many of the battleships of World War II were built here, aircraft carriers. But look at the population change. In World War II, 75,000 workers. By 65, after they shut down the yard, 70 employees, all guards. But by 2015, we had moved it back up to 7,000 employees. And in 2020, expected 15,000, although I think with COVID, that number is probably not quite as high as we expected. But what they did was they opened it up for innovation, for young companies. Look at this company, New Lab. If you get a chance, look at New Lab, a hardware and software accelerator incubator with 100 new companies, creating amazing new products, often using 3D printing, but not always, high on design. Many companies like this in the Navy Yard, resulting in local employment, young people creating new ventures, and giving a vitality to Brooklyn that we didn't have. And then we wove the three together and called it the Brooklyn Technology Triangle. So if I was going to sum up the things that I see are important, first and most is talent. It's key. You need to attract it, you need to train it, and you need to retain it. And that means the quality of life of a city needs to be high. The ability to move around, to meet people, to get access to capital, all the items I discussed. Second, there's major challenges and threats to cities. Automation and the future of work is going to change how people live, how they work. It's going to cause problems with inequality because our education system often leaves nearly half the population or more inadequately educated to compete against a robot, to live in a world of automation. And finally, coronavirus has shifted our thinking about density, shifted our thinking about public health. We don't know really where the answer goes on this because it could be we will see a transformation of cities significantly, a new way of living, or we may see a big effort to revert back to the more traditional life once a vaccine exists. And it's hard to call that. And the longer we remain in this semi-pandemic, major pandemic in some countries, the more likely we'll see a deeper transformation as we learn to live with virtual communication, virtual education, virtual retail, everything that we thought was going to be hard to do, we're learning to do. And finally, it's good to have technology. Let's keep inventing it. I love technology, but smart people are really the key. The more smart people we have, the more likely we'll solve the issues we're facing here in the 21st century. And we'll have smart cities that really satisfy people and give them a great life. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. And I'd love to hear your questions and to get your ideas.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Thank you for your inspiring speech. We are looking to New York to get inspired. Where do New York look to? Where get New York the inspiration for such ideas?
So where do you get inspiration? You get it from actually mixing with other people's ideas. In my life, I've learned that it was impossible to learn everything, to know everything, to be inventive on your own. So more and more, having to surround yourself with bright minds, people with big ideas, and let that bubble, and then pick a few of them and make them happen.
And to what countries do you look, or what are inspiring cases where New York is looking to and gets some ideas?
Yeah.
So I like the idea from the 15-minute city. Is it an idea from New York, or
Actually, I think we give credit to Paris for Mayor Hidalgo for 15-minute cities. But Helsinki, before her, was doing saving 1 hour a day, which had many of the same ideas, which is give every neighborhood a chance to say what did they want. I talked to a woman in Helsinki. I said, well, what would you like to save? She said, I want to quit cooking meals. I would like to have that hour every evening where I don't cook meals. So saving an hour of a day means getting dinner delivered. But that's where these ideas come from. They come from people saying, give me a better life, and here's how.
Yes, you're right. We have questions in our chat. I will have a look. Are there any reasons or challenges why cities, especially New York, may choose to go against becoming a smarter city, maybe cost of new technologies?
Well, there's clearly, and we're realizing this more and more, a dark side to technology. Almost every technology that we've invented using science has had a dark side, and we usually try to moderate it. And so smart cities can be, you can conjure in your mind a smart city that is dystopian. We're beginning to believe China is building these kinds of cities where you know everything about everybody, you control their social behavior. I think human spirit pushes back against that. I think as I travel in China, there's no question China has become a little more controlling, but keep in mind, China has moved 400 million, 500 million people from poverty to middle-class life. It delivered a lot using technology, using opportunity. So my view is be conscious that there's a dark side. Be aware of the privacy, security, cybersecurity, misinformation. These all existed in prior worlds. It wasn't as though the 20th century was a world without problems. The 21st century will have its issues, and we are smart enough, I believe, to manage those issues.
Okay, you said that robots are competing with humans, but wouldn't artificial intelligence be essential to becoming smarter? What are some ways that these two can coexist without one taking over the other?
Yes, no, that's absolutely right, and I agree with you. The goal should be how we live together with automation, robots, in a way that makes our life better. I mean, again, we did this in the 20th century. In the 19th century, the steam engine made travel easier. Technology moves people faster. The 20th century, let's just take the dishwasher. I quit washing dishes. All right, that's the way to make your life better. So use the same techniques in the 21st century and team up with robots. Have them do all the work we don't want to do. Have them do all the work, and let's us enjoy life.
Yes, that's right. Okay, last question. Are there any specific areas where you feel like New York can do a lot more to become a smarter city? Is there anything that other cities are doing better already?
New York has done a lot of things that are smart. Some of them are invisible. For instance, wireless water meters cut down enormously on wasted water, also on water theft, and consumer complaints. So New York's got smart in it, but there are cities around the world who I look to, and I think New York looks to as great examples. Up high on the list would be Singapore. Singapore thinks hard about its future, then builds to match its future. You could take the Scandinavian countries, Helsinki, Stockholm, Tallinn. They're all in New York City. They're all talking to New Yorkers about what they've done, and we're intrigued with what they've done. Paris is a good example with 15-minute city. So yes, the answer is yes. There's other to look to.
A good answer.
Berlin. I'll add that to the list.
Yeah, a clearly answer. Jerry, thank you very much for your inspiring speech and your ideas. And I like the 50-minute city, and I didn't know that she is so near near from Germany.
Right.
Yes. And I like dishwasher, and I like robots, and you're so right. When they help us, it would be a great future.
Could be. It should be. So let's make it that way. Yeah.
We do everything with these conferences. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.